Over the course of NBA history, there have been many players that were snubbed for one reason or another by teams that had a chance to draft them. There are many reasons why this happens. Sometimes it's the fault of scouts for incorrectly evaluating the potential of a draft prospect. Sometimes a player who was superior in college is chosen and ends up being a bust. Not every player can translate their game from the college game to the pro game. Sometimes a player only shows you flashes of his potential, but is not as productive. Evaluating players' motivation and work ethic is so important. And sometimes a team just gets lucky and capitalizes on other teams' bad selections. These factors have allowed many teams to steal such great players throughout the history of the NBA draft. This is my top 20 ranking of the biggest steals in NBA draft history who was selected outside the top 10 since 1985. At number 20, Shaun Kemp, the Rain Man. He was Blake Griffin before Blake Griffin. The Seattle Supersonics selected the 20-year-old athletic freak out of Trinity Valley Community College. Who would have thought that this guy would have been a 6-time All-Star and earned 3 All-NBA selections? Kemp was one of the best in-game dunkers in NBA history. His combination of size, vertical, and power made him an unstoppable force in the air. Kemp would throw it down in your face and let you know about it. Some of the things he did after he smashed on you would have earned him a lot of technical fouls in today's NBA. His career didn't end the way it should have, and more than likely he won't be a Hall of Famer. Another career highlight from him is when he helped the 1996 Sonics make it all the way to the NBA Finals. At 19, Paul Millsap. The 47th pick in the 2006 NBA draft didn't waste any time proving he belonged in the NBA, as he earned second-team All-Rookie honors. During his time at Louisiana Tech, he led the nation in rebounding 3 years in a row, and that easily translated in the NBA. Millsap's best days were with the Utah Jazz and the Atlanta Hawks, two teams who regularly made the playoffs during his time with them. But he was a 4-time All-Star with the Atlanta Hawks. He averaged around 17 points and 8 rebounds per game and was a second-team All-Defensive selection in 2015-16. At number 18, Gilbert Arenas. Even though his career crashed and burned after knee injuries and a locker room incident, Agent Zero is one of the best players in the 2001 NBA draft. He lasted until the second round, and the Golden State Warriors drafted him with the 31st pick. The 3-time All-Star's best years were with the Washington Wizards. Arenas was most impressive during a 3-season stretch where he averaged 25.5, 29.3, and 28.4 points per game respectively. He established himself as one of the best scorers in the league. He could have accomplished more in his career if he didn't rush back from a torn meniscus in his knee and a gun incident with Javaris Crittenton that resulted in a long suspension and the beginning of the end for his career as an All-Star. Number 17, Isiah Thomas. Thomas was the NBA version of Mr. Irrelevant when he was taken with the last pick in 2011 by the Sacramento Kings. It's crazy that Thomas ended up being a starter for the Kings in his rookie year when they also drafted Jimmer Fredette in the top 10 that same year. Thomas used every inch of his 5'9" frame to become the great scorer that he was. His quickness, body control, and fearlessness were big factors for him becoming a bona fide scorer despite his size. In 2016-17, he dropped nearly 29 points per game, earned his second straight All-Star selection, made his first career All-NBA team, and led the Celtics to the best record in the Eastern Conference. It was almost certain that he was going to get that contract he thought he deserved, but injuries kept Thomas from cashing in. Injury after injury took a toll on his body, and he was already over the age of 30. Being someone who had to rely on his quickness because of his size, he wasn't as effective as a scorer as he got older. But he still had a hell of a career and definitely maximized his potential in my opinion. Number 16, Andrei Kirilenko. There wasn't anything that Kirilenko couldn't do on the court. He could score on and off the ball, he could pass, rebound, and could defend anybody on the court. He managed to lead the league in blocks per game in his 4th season. AK-47 quickly proved that it was a mistake to let him fall all the way to the Utah Jazz at 24. In 1999, Kirilenko became the youngest European player ever drafted at that point at the age of 18. He could stuff the stat sheet better than anybody. Kirilenko was a fan favorite for his tenacity on defense and his unique shot blocking ability. He was an All-Star in 2004 and made the first team All-Defense. At number 15, Draymond Green. He was the last pick of the Golden State Warriors' young core as he was drafted in the second round in 2012. From 2012 to 2017, he was the emotional leader, the glue guy that held everything together. He did the dirty work for this championship dynasty. Draymond can facilitate, handle the rock, and guard every position on the court. And he got his scoring chances off the attention that Klay and Steph got on a nightly basis. This Defensive Player of the Year winner has had multiple All-Star selections and multiple All-Defensive Team selections. He has not been the same player he once was, but it would be crazy not to appreciate what this man did on the court for the Golden State Warriors. At 14, Rajon Rondo. Rondo slipped to the 21st pick in the 2006 NBA draft and was thrown into the starting lineup with 3 future Hall of Famers in his second year in the league. He had to grow up fast because anything less than a championship going forward was a disappointment. Rondo quickly became one of the best point guards in the league. And as the Big Three got older, he took over as the best player on the team. Rondo was a great rebounding guard, a great passer with great vision, and a top-notch defender. Even though he never developed as a reliable offensive player, he still impacted the game in many other areas. 13, Dennis Rodman. It's pretty incredible that Rodman was able to have a Hall of Fame career without any offensive game to speak of. It goes to show you how much of a great defensive player and rebounder he was. He was also known for his relentless play and crazy antics. Over his 14-year career, the Worm averaged 13 rebounds per game, made 8 All-Defensive teams, and won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He was part of 5 championship teams who were all known for how good they were on defense. Rodman could battle with the best of them in the paint, from Karl Malone to Shaquille O'Neal. At 12, Joe Dumars. The 6'3" guard out of McNeese State was drafted by the Pistons with the 18th pick in the 1985 NBA draft. He spent his entire 14-year career with the Detroit Pistons. Dumars was known as a defensive standout and a clutch shooter. Michael Jordan credited him as one of his toughest defenders he ever faced. Dumars was a 3-time All-NBA selection, a 6-time All-Star, and a 2-time champion. He was named Finals MVP in the 1989 Finals when he averaged 27 points per game in a sweep over the Los Angeles Lakers. At number 11, Klay Thompson. The Golden State Warriors added the second splash brother in the 2011 NBA draft, the second part of the dynamic duo with Steph Curry. He is part of the greatest shooting backcourt in NBA history. This guy has the NBA record for the most points in a single quarter with 37. Nobody uses less dribbles to get his 20 points per game than Klay Thompson. Even though he's never made an all-defensive team, he has been a great defender in his career. He's the ideal shooting guard in today's NBA, and he can literally fit with any team and any superstar. At number 10, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy G. Buckets was the last pick of the 2011 NBA draft. Butler was drafted by the Chicago Bulls, who had just appeared in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Derrick Rose was coming off his MVP season. Butler had to wait patiently for his shot to become an all-star player he ended up being. Not only did he become a 20-plus point a game scorer, but he also was one of the best two-way players in the game. He has been selected to 3 all-defensive teams. He has been a fiery competitor, and he expects the best from his teammates. He might rub you the wrong way, but he's just trying to hold his teammates accountable and win. At number 9, Karl Malone. The star out of Louisiana Tech was drafted at the end of the lottery at 13 by the Utah Jazz in 1985. From that point on, the mailman delivered a Hall of Fame career. He and Stockton created one of the best pick-and-roll combos in the history of the league. Malone was a physical presence in the paint and would not hesitate knocking you down to the floor while trying to drive the lane. He averaged 25 and 10 over the course of his career. He played 19 NBA seasons and was an All-Star 14 times. He won 2 League MVP awards and led the Utah Jazz to 2 NBA Finals appearances and is currently the second all-time leading scorer in NBA history. At number 8, Steve Nash. The Phoenix Suns took the Canadian point guard from Santa Clara with the 15th pick in the 1996 draft. After dealing him away in 1999 to the Dallas Mavericks, the Phoenix Suns were able to sign him back when he became a free agent, and that's when Nash really put his stamp in the NBA. Nash and Mike D'Antoni were the creators of one of the fastest offenses in modern basketball. Everyone called it 7 seconds or less. Nash's creativity with the ball was a joy to watch. Nash's pick and roll with Amari Stoudemire almost always led to a bucket. Even if most fans don't believe Steve Nash deserved 2 MVPs, for him to even be in the discussion for them is an accomplishment in itself. At number 7, Kawhi Leonard. There are only a few players that I can remember that made significant improvements to their game from the time they were drafted than Kawhi Leonard. He came into the league as a great defensive talent and a limited offensive player, and has become the best two-way player in the league. His quick feet, instincts, long arms, and big hands led him to winning 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, the Claw as they call him. He can lock down your best player and also give you buckets on the other end. He won Finals MVP as a role player with the veteran Spurs team in 2014. And he also won his second one as the best player with the Toronto Raptors in 2019. He has teamed up with Paul George to try to win his 3rd championship, and that could make him the first player in NBA history to win Finals MVP for 3 different franchises. Not bad for the 15th pick in the 2011 NBA Draft. At number 6, Tony Parker. The San Antonio Spurs have always had a great track record in drafting the best available prospect in the draft. And the 2001 NBA Draft was an extremely weak class, as many players drafted in the top 10 never amounted to much in the NBA. The Spurs were able to snag Tony Parker with the 28th pick. Blessed with quickness and speed, he helped the Spurs win 4 championships and was the first European-born player to win NBA Finals MVP in 2007. This 6-time All-Star had an incredible Hall of Fame-worthy career, and he can thank Greg Popovich and the Spurs organization for his development. At number 5, Nikola Jokic. In a draft that was dominated by Andrew Wiggins versus Jabari Parker discussions, Nikola Jokic has ended up not only being a better player than both, but one of the best players in the entire draft, and he was a 2nd rounder in 2014. Jokic has revolutionized the center position by running the offense with his flashy passes, his outside shooting, and his low post game. In 2019, he finished 4th in MVP voting behind Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, and Paul George. He's a triple-double threat every time he steps onto the court. Jokic has become an elite player and is arguably a top 10 player currently in 2020. At number 4, Marc Gasol. Marc is one of the founding members of Grit and Grind. Paul Gasol's younger brother was drafted 48th by the Los Angeles Lakers and was part of the trade that involved his brother and was sent to the Memphis Grizzlies. At the time, everybody thought it was a one-sided trade and that the Grizzlies got robbed. But once Marc Gasol started playing for the Grizzlies, those negative opinions went away. He became a two-way player and helped the Grizzlies make the playoffs from 2011 to 2017. The furthest the Grizzlies ever got in the playoffs was the Western Conference Finals in 2013, where they were swept by the San Antonio Spurs. The 3-time All-Star earned 2 All-NBA selections and won Defensive Player of the Year in 2012-13. And number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even though the 2013 NBA Draft was projected to be weak, there were still 14 teams that passed on the Greek Freak. He and Kawhi Leonard are the names that come to my mind of players improving their games the most from the time they were drafted. Nobody thought this guy would be a league MVP, and there's a good chance he could make it too. This 6'11" forward with a 7'3" wingspan can handle point guard duties, guard anybody from 1 through 5, and can overpower many players in the paint area. He dominates the game almost the way Shaq did. He's virtually unstoppable when he gets the ball near the rim. Once he gets you on his hip, there's a good chance he's going to throw it down on your head. Every year he seems to get more comfortable with his outside shooting. At number 2, Manu Ginobili. Ginobili is one of the best six men of all time. He's a hard worker, tenacious competitor, and is very unselfish. The 57th pick of the 1999 draft could have easily put up bigger numbers being a consistent starter on another team. It takes a professional and a team-first guy to accept the role when you know you have the talent to be the best player on a contender. Even though he was drafted in 1999, he didn't make his debut until 2002. Ginobili was a two-time All-Star, made 2 All-NBA teams, and was a 4-time NBA champion. With his Euro step, wraparound passes, and finishes at the hoop, Ginobili injected more creativity and beauty into the game of basketball than almost anybody in his era. Even though he came off the bench for most of his career, he was always in the game in the fourth quarter. He was the guy you wanted with the ball in his hands at the end of games, whether it was to score the rock or pass it to the open man. Coming in at the top spot is the late great Kobe Bean Bryant, aka Black Mamba. It's crazy to think that even in a draft class as legendary as the 1996 draft, that Kobe would slip all the way down to the 13th overall pick. He was traded on draft night from the Hornets to the Lakers for Vlade Divac. Kobe is my biggest steal in NBA history, and it didn't take him long to explode on the court once he started getting consistent playing time. He was the backbone of the Lakers dynasty that won 5 championships in a decade. His work ethic was second to none. Talent can get you in the NBA, but hard work and dedication is the difference between being good and being a Hall of Famer. Kobe is one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, and he went out on top scoring 60 points in his final game of his 20-year career. Mamba out.